For Senator Obama supporters, Fairfax, Virginia, you're next.
Good morning, gentlemen. I was hoping to have a chance to speak to Mr. Corsi. I wanted to congratulate him on the publication of another fictitious book, but unfortunately I didn't have the opportunity. I was a little disappointed that whenever Obama supporters take umbrage with his distortions and his lies, that he resorts to ridicule and insult. And I'm wondering, Mr. Waldman, if you think that these distractions from the real issues will have an impact on this election. I mean, for instance, Mr. Corsi alleges in his book that Obama supports de-escalating troops from Afghanistan, when in fact Obama's January 2007 bill calls for a timeline for withdrawal of troops from Iraq and a redeployment of troops to Afghanistan. I mean, these, I feel, are the issues we should be focusing on.
Yeah, it's a good point. The falsehoods in Corsi's book are not just restricted to kind of the personal life aspects of Obama. There are also policy-based falsehoods. The one that she mentions is a great example. He says that Obama wants to take all troops out of Afghanistan. Well, the truth is, and it's not a big mystery, he's talked about this probably hundreds of times, he wants to take troops out of Iraq and put them in Afghanistan. And there are other distortions like that on his record on abortion and all kinds of things. I think that, you know, if we were having a more policy-based discussion, then, you know, those sorts of things would immediately strike people as obviously false. The fact of the matter is, though, that this presidential campaign, like every presidential campaign, ends up being mostly about character. That's what the press is really interested in. They are interested in those big character issues. Is Obama too green? Is McCain too old? Those kinds of questions. And that's what we talked about 4 years ago, and 8 years ago, and 12 years ago. That's what the press is always focused on. Now, there's a place for that, and I think investigating the character of presidential candidates is important. Unfortunately, all too often the press focuses on the wrong thing or just gets it wrong. But it's legitimate to talk about their character and their histories and the experiences that have shaped them. But we should also be talking about what their agendas are in such a way so that everybody really understands it and there isn't a whole lot of misunderstanding about what each candidate wants to do.
Mr. Corsi's book, topic of, if you go to the website of Media Matters, they make it one of their key points. You can go to that, MediaMatters.org, if you want to read more about their analysis. It's also connected to our C-SPAN site as well. Paul Waldman with us for the next 20 minutes. Bedford, Washington. Go ahead, please. You are on with Paul Waldman.
Hi. I'd like to state that I'm not here supporting Mr. Corsi, but you make it sound like there are no truths in the book. This is a book that apparently is very large, and I'm just wondering how you could purport that there are no truths in there or make it sound that way. I also have one more comment. I noticed that you use the word Fox News whenever you want to have a code word for the right or to make a point. Now, I know you appeared on CNN's Larry King with Mr. Corsi, and you didn't mention CNN. Also, your organization is always going after Fox News, but talk about one-sidedness. We have Keith Olbermann, who never has a guest or a countering point against him. And that is the one show that's one-sided all the time. So I'd like to hear your comments.
Sure. I don't use Fox News as a code word. I talk about Fox News. I mentioned that Mr. Corsi has been on Fox News many, many times, and it's a part of a very large and effective conservative message machine. And that's specific to Fox News. As to whether or not Media Matters criticizes other networks, we do it all the time. Go to our website, MediaMatters.org, put CNN or MSNBC into the search box, and you will find hundreds of criticisms of those networks too. Whenever we find misinformation, we're going to criticize it. And as to the caller's first question about whether there are things that are also true in the book, well, that's a pretty low standard. I mean, as far as I know, Mr. Corsi gets Obama's birth date right, and that, in fact, he was elected to the Senate in 2004. But getting those facts right doesn't excuse you from getting all these other facts wrong.
Elkton, Maryland. Good morning. Our line for Senator Obama supporters.
Morning, Pedro. Mr. Waldman, I'm so glad. I'm just so overwhelmed. I'm really glad you're intelligent enough to focus because this is so mind-blowing. Some of this stuff is just so mind-blowing, I can't even figure out what to focus on. I mean, when you were talking about these conservative imprints from these other publishers, I changed my whole way of thinking. I was like, I was going to call about this other guy, and now I'm like, what is this whole world about money? Does anybody give a darn if we're telling the truth? Remember when we had 3 stations? ABC, NBC, CBS, Playhouse 90, you know, all this fairly deep stuff. And we didn't put crackpots on television. I mean, I don't like to insult people, but the man's a crackpot. He did it in the last election, and he's doing it again. And I agree with you. Fox News is Fox News. It speaks for itself. I don't know. I'm just amazed, but thank you. I really, really appreciate your ability to focus because my mind is swimming right now.
Caller, thanks.
Yeah, well, it is one of the kind of paradoxes of our modern age. I mean, as the course said, we used to have 3 channels, and you know, every night Walter Cronkite would say, that's the way it is, and everyone believed him. And now we live in a world where there are an infinite number of sources of information, and that has both good sides and bad sides. One of the good sides is that things can be refuted, and that somewhere out there you can always find somebody telling the truth, even if, say, most of the major media are missing a story. You can find the story somewhere. Some journalist somewhere is getting it right. There are lots of different places for people to assess what's going on in the media, and that's all fantastic. At the same time, there are a lot of things out there that are false. And one of the things that we've seen this year, I don't think there's ever been a presidential candidate who's been the target of so many different kinds of falsehoods and misinformation and a smear campaign as Barack Obama has, coming from so many different places. Just one example is all the emails that are going around. We've had email for a few years, but it's only in this election that that's become such a key part of a campaign against a presidential candidate. And I'm sure that almost everyone has gotten at least a couple of these, you know, with all these crazy charges that he's some kind of Manchurian candidate, you know, and that he's a secret Muslim and all of these things. And they've gone out to millions and millions and millions of people. And there are a lot of people who believe it. And so in that kind of a context, in today's media world, what we see our job at Media Matters is to do is to be extremely vigilant and try to correct those things as soon as we can find them. But it's a tremendous challenge.